Hi everyone. Welcome to Wool and Spinning. My name is Rachel. It is Saturday, May 1st of 2021. Can you believe that we are here already? It is just mind-boggling. I hope that this finds you all really super well. It is episode 197. We are getting very close to 200. I'm just going to fix my bangs here. I cut them this morning and got them all trimmed, and then I always find that they never lay properly for the first little while, but they were in my eyes yesterday during the wool circle, so I tried to fix them. Anyhow, you guys aren't here for my bangs. The wool circle yesterday, we had a lovely time. We were chit-chatting about rose fiber, actually, which was really, really fun. And I had, and then we had book club, and we had a wonderful time. We watched the second episode of North and South. So we had read North and South, and then we are watching the BBC production, which we're all really enjoying. There was silence through the whole thing, so we're watching it together on Zoom. So that was really fun. And we had a lovely conversation afterwards. So thank you everyone for being there yesterday. And thank you especially to Becca, who I don't see her just yet. I don't see, no, she's not here yet. I don't think. She's probably making dinner because she's in the UK. So 8 hours ahead of me. Thank you to Becca for organizing book club and for doing all that she does. It's incredibly generous that she does that and that she wants to do that. So thank you so much to Becca. In today's show, I haven't been doing a lot. I haven't been making a lot. I have been knitting, and I wanted to show you something that I was able to finish off earlier this week. That's actually going to be part of the How I Spin content for May and June. So that content will be coming out in the next couple of weeks for May, and then there will be more in June. And if you're wondering about what happens here and some of the links to sort of see what goes on here at Wool and Spinning, I posted the housekeeping link way at the beginning of the chat. James named our chat and called it something that they call housekeeping in school. So it's now called Ketchup and Pickles, and I'll let you read the post as to why that's the case. Yeah, so we've got sort of some stuff coming up that I'll share a little bit about today, which is really exciting. So how is everybody? You guys I love it when you guys say hi and from where you're from, because then we kind of know, where everybody's coming from. So we've got Ruth from Central Indiana, Southern Ontario from Judy. We've got lots of people from the UK and Europe, Germany, Richmond, which is here in BC, Denmark, Arlington, Virginia, where else? I always lose as I'm reading through the chat when I'm podcasting. I always lose track of where I am as you guys populate your comments. We've got Wisconsin, Arizona. Kathy just bought a Finn fleece from the Maryland Sheep and Wool. They've gone online this year, so there's been people in the community who've been participating in online workshops and whatnot, which is wonderful. We've got Southern California. And where else? Southwest Ohio, more from Wisconsin, lots of people from the Fraser Valley, which is here in southwestern British Columbia, which is where I am. I'm just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. And Philadelphia, Spokane, Washington, which I've been to many, many, many times. San Francisco. I love that Laura is climbing Ply Mountain. Victoria is from South Jersey. I could just go on and on. Zan is on is that on Sleeve Island? Ply Mountain and Sleeve Island. It makes me think of Thomas the Tank Engine. Misty Island and Shake Shake Bridge. We have a place just a little bit further east of us from here that is part of where I live and part of the bigger township, and it's along the Fraser River, and you can go over a bridge that takes you to the other side where there's a campground, and it used to take you on a ferry across to the other side of the Fraser Valley. Anyways, when the kids were quite young, James was probably only 2, maybe 3, but I think it was before he went to preschool. He used to call the bridge the Shake Shake Bridge, and then the island, which is Bray Island, he used to call it Misty Island, because it was often very misty down on the floodplains of this particular area. Especially being along the river, and it was a little bit eerie sometimes in the morning, really super early, and so he would call that Misty Island. Dana was saying that she was sampling her Romney fleece yesterday and did a 2-ply. She's been combing, which is fantastic. Greta is growing flax. Cheryl from North Carolina. Elaine from Kelowna, British Columbia. Been there lots and lots of times. Many people here probably have who are from this area. Karen from Michigan. Lynn Joe from Oregon. We could just go on and on and on. So thank you guys for sharing. Oh, Lindsay's trying an e-spinner for the first time this morning. The electric e-wheel, the Nano. She's loving it so far. How nice it is to be able to lounge on the couch. Absolutely, Lindsay. I know a couple of people have been trying out the Nano and the new one. So that's really exciting. You guys will have to report back. Josie is spinning for a Mother's Day present. Dorothy, hello, how are you? Eve is here. So I have the fin that I was working on last week that was on my e-spinner that I was still plying. I finished it off. I did a 2-ply. I did skein it and wash it. I decided to hold off on cabling it right away. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then I wanted to mention about the wool circle. Yesterday, we are talking for the month of May about rose fiber. So we've been talking in the Wool Circle, which is one of the tiers on Patreon. We get together every other Friday. It's 2 Fridays a month, basically. And we talk about like what I'm actually spinning, and we kind of work through some weird and wonderful things and talk about different yarn structures and hand spun yarn structures and whatnot. And recently we've been working through some samples that I had got from Sanjo Silk, and we're still sort of working our way through those, and we're trying to decide how we're going to build our next spin box with them, which will probably come up in the summer. And Kelly had actually asked about rose fiber. So she had this really neat blend of, I think it was merino and rose fiber. And she was wondering if we had any tips and tricks about spinning it. And we had looked at rose fiber briefly in the 51 Yarns spin along. We had looked at it, I think it was in relation to all of the different manufactured fibers. So we had looked at sort of, you know, what that means, how do you classify them, how do you you know, organize them, all of that kind of stuff. And so it kind of, when Kelly mentioned about the rose fiber, it sort of made me sort of think, well, I should pull mine out, and I have a whole, you know, I think I've got 100 grams of it, so 4 ounces of rose fiber. Sorry, I can't hold on to it. Maybe we should sort of do a little bit of an exploration for the next little while and have a look at rose fiber. So that's what we're going to do for May. So this is my 100% rose yarn, which the camera for some reason doesn't want to focus in on. It's struggling a little bit, probably because there's nothing really to focus on. And then yesterday in the Wool Circle, we did a whole bunch of sampling. So this was my rose fiber 3-plied. So I'll show you that there. So that's it as a 3-ply yarn, which is really neat. It's very round, got a lovely twist angle. It has a nice drape. And we talked about sort of some of the uses for that yarn. And then the other ones, I had made a 95.5% wool rose blend. And we did some sampling off of the wheel with that. And that was really fun too. So I just had these samples sitting here this morning, and I thought, well, I'll show you guys. So this is 95% wool, 5% rose. And we talked about these quite extensively on the Wool Circle. So this is a 2-ply and this is a 3-ply. So a little bit bulkier, but both have that memory and elasticity of the wool. Both very, very pleasing yarns. And I was really surprised as I broke down these nests and spun them. This is the wool silk, sorry, the wool rose. I keep saying silk, I mean rose. Blend here. And you can see a little bit of that sheen in there, and that's from the rose fiber. And I was surprised at how easy it was to spin. It basically felt like spinning wool. So I'm gonna finish that up hopefully later today. I'm really hoping to get some quiet and be able to sit on my wheel. So rose fiber is not from roses. That's a big misnomer. It is a fiber. It's a plant-derived fiber, and it's actually made mostly from rice protein. It's very these fibers. So the reason why it's called rose fiber or rose bush fiber is because it feels like the softness of roses. There's some information out there on the internets, and we talked about it quite extensively yesterday. So really, really fascinating and really fun to explore, because we tend to gloss over a lot of these fibers and sort of say, oh yeah, and there's this, and oh yeah, there's this, but we don't kind of delve into them. So that's what we're doing this month, which is really fun. So without further ado, let's get into the podcast, and I will tell you a little bit more about this skein and why I decided to leave it as a 2-ply. Okay. So this was my Finn yarn. This is washed. I ended up with about 600 yards out of 4 ounces of basically light fingering weight 2-ply yarn. I had talked last week about putting it back through the wheel, tightening up the twist, and making it a cabled yarn. And if I were to do that, this is from Kingdom Fleece and Fiber Works, and I think I saw Liz in the chat. Did I see Liz? Maybe I'm wrong. Anyhow, Kingdom Fleece and Fiber Works is a mill in Vermont, and Liz is kind of a one-man show, and she does great stuff. Greta and I got some CVM fleeces processed by her, and I also got a Cormo done, which I've talked about a little bit on the podcast, because I got really bogged down with the Cormo. But it's just spinning up so fine that I just kind of lost my momentum for it. So it's still there. It's still got a bobbin tied up. But I think what I'm actually going to end up doing is spinning a full bobbin of it, and then winding it off onto weaving bobbins and making a 3-ply. So kind of doing like one bobbin at a time, because it's just so much fiber, and I don't want to chain ply it necessarily. And it's spinning so fine that I just, to kind of survive getting through that Cormo, is going to be sort of a labor of love, if you will. Sometimes there's just those projects that end up being a little bit of a slog, and that one is sort of one of them. So what I had talked about doing last show was cabling this. So putting in twice the amount of ply twist that I would into the 2-ply, and then I would cable it and make a 4-ply yarn. It would bulk this yarn up to about a sport weight, and it would give a really nice bouncy elastic yarn with good memory, and it would also kind of half my yardage. So I would go from having about 550-ish yards, 580, to about 250, maybe a bit low, maybe sort of around 250, give or take. This yarn was spun to go with some other yarn for my Natural Shades Along. So our Natural Shades Along is a spin along in our community that is all focused on the natural shades of wool and the natural shades of natural fibers. So it doesn't have to be wool. You can be looking at silk, you can be looking at cellulose-based fibers, you can be looking at, I don't know, what do you want to spin? So the alpaca comes in many different colors. Llama, some of the other camelids like camel, yak, the silvery gray of Kiviet. It just goes on and on, doesn't it? I mean, when you really slow down and think about all the unbelievable natural shades, it's just unbelievable. So the interesting piece of that is that all of that yardage of the fin, I sort of thought what I would do is I have this smaller skein here, and what I sort of thought that I would do is wind this into a ball, wind the other yarns that I have that I spun to match into a ball, and do some knitted samples and decide if I want to proceed or not, because this is really, really finely spun. It's a like I said, it's fingering, and I'm just really not sure, you know, what to do, and what I should you know, if I want to apply it and cable it, or leave it as a 2-ply. So the only way to kind of go forward is to do some knitted samples and to sort of see what I come up with. So yeah, I really love the softness of it. I soaked it in with a Eucalyptus wash for quite a long time, and I really, really love the finished yarn. This took forever to spin. It was a really, really fine spin, and I spun it long draw, and I have to admit that having it finished has really, it's been a nice completion project. For whichever month it was it January's giveaway? I still have to mail out all of the giveaways since Christmas time. So Kelly, your Try It On tubing, the fin, the 2 Targi samples, and actually the only reason why I've delayed in getting them done and getting them sent out is because I wasn't going to the post office. So I will get that done. So this fin silk, I'm not exactly sure what the ratios were because Liz couldn't remember. I suspect it's about 85-15, and it's ended up being a lovely sheen. There are places where you can see a little bit of silk, but this natural shade of this lamb's fin fleece is just really, really come out really nicely. So really happy with that, and I will try to get some sampling done sort of as soon as possible, because I would like to decide if I'm going to apply it or not. I'm rambling. This is, I crashed last night, you guys. I was so tired. Us girls in the cul-de-sac, 3 of my best friends, we got together last night, and just in one of the garages, because it was a little bit chilly to sit outside. We'd all eaten dinner together, all of our families, at the end of our driveways, and then us girls were like, you know what, let's get together later. So we did, and I actually I only stayed out for about an hour. I was home and in bed by about 9:30. It was such a draining week, and emotionally, and I just, I needed to go to bed. So some weeks are like that, you know, there's a lot going on, and you just feel like you're kind of at the end of your proverbial rope. This is Fennel. So I have been working very steadily on this, and I had said to you guys that I really couldn't get through a lot of the knitting all at once because the yarn is a little bit stiff. It's 100% Romney. It's a 3-ply. It really has nice drape. It's really coming out nicely. It looks really big on the dress form, so if I pull it across, it's sort of got like 3 inches of overlap here, maybe even 4 inches. But when I put it on, and when the sleeves end up knit and kind of cinched up, that'll all sort of work itself out. And what it's going to mean is that I'll be able to button it up. So that'll be really, really nice. It'll have sort of some natural positive ease. My dress form, I find that things on my dress form always look a little bit too big, and then I put them on my body, even though it's the same measurements. Your body and your clothing just fits differently, you know? And so when I put it on this morning, I was like, oh no, this is gonna actually be really, really great. This is the back. You can see those curly Q stitches of the long wool. It doesn't lay really super flat the way that we would expect a fine wool to lay. The long wools sort of give you that slightly curly Q sort of look. And my knitted swatch, when I had done that, after washing and just leaving it and soaking it in the water for quite a long time, those stitches really kind of relaxed and laid into themselves and were able to loop in the knitted swatch. So it might take longer in a sweater. I remember reading Elizabeth Zimmerman, I think somewhere, maybe it was in Knitting Without Tears, or maybe it was in The Opinionated Knitter. I remember her saying that over time sweaters relax, and over time the stitches relax and everything just kind of relaxes. And I remember reading that and thinking, oh, okay, so the more you wear something, the more it kind of, you know, the sweater will kind of just ease together. Like, you know, when you look at color work in the yoke and it's so crisp and doesn't look really super cohesive when you first finish it, and then you wash it and you soak it and you block it, like, you know, lay it out to dry basically and kind of shift it into place. You know, you kind of move the fabric around and lay it out, and then you start to wear it and it just becomes more and more and more cohesive. So that I think that's exactly what's going to happen with this. There are some areas like in here where there's like some shorter kind of fluffy bits. And I've been kind of playing with like pulling them out with my fingernail, kind of like this. And then other ones I've sort of left because they're not big enough where I'm actually worried that that I could actually like wreck the fabric there. So some of them I've been pulling out, but overall I'm quite happy with the yarn and quite happy with how it's knitting up. It's very rustic. I'm not sure that this is a sweater that I'm going to want to wear right up against my neck and right up against my skin. I think it'll be a really good sweater for a shirt like this where you've got long sleeves. So yeah, that'll be really interesting. Yeah. I've been ignoring chat, you guys. I'm really sorry. I got going. I got going off on a tangent. Oh, welcome to Becca. For those of you who wind off onto weaving bobbins to ply, do you just eyeball it or try to get an even division, or do you wind off a certain weight onto each one? That's a great question, Katie. So one of the things that I will often do is if I'm winding off singles from just one big bobbin, I tend to use my smaller shacked weaving bobbins because they have a little ledge on either end. So if your singles pop off, there's at least something to catch them. And what I will do is I'll wind off the bobbins. So the one big bobbin, I'll wind that from my Lazy Kate onto my bobbin, my weaving bobbin. And I'll kind of wind off enough singles until it's full. So just like a little tiny bulge on each side of the weaving bobbin. So I don't overload it, but I just sort of load it nicely. And I'll do that for as many weaving bobbins as I need to. So sometimes I end up with 5, sometimes I end up with 7, sometimes I end up with 9. And then I just ply from those. And I just kind of keep attaching singles from all the different weaving bobbins as each of them runs out. Because invariably one of them will run out first and then you attach another one. And I try to sort of eyeball, you know, if one is particularly full still and I'm relatively, and it's sort of still toward the beginning of my plying, I'll attach that one next. Whereas the ones that are a little bit more empty, I tend to, because as you get to the end of your bobbin, your weaving bobbins have less and less singles on them as you try to distribute them. I'll save those ones sort of for the end. And I try as much as possible, especially when it's a 3-ply, to sort of match them up as much as I can to kind of get to the end. But I often do end up plying those last few yards from usually the last 10 or 20 yards from either a center pull ball, or I'll redistribute them again across weaving bobbins, or I'll just leave them. Like if I have this much yarn, I won't try to manage the singles. I'll just leave them and save them for later, or I'll 2-ply them and use them for skein ties so that they become the ties on my skein. So there's a couple of things that you can do. It depends. To be honest with you, it depends on how neurotic you are about managing your singles and wanting to use every last yard of singles. And some of us are more neurotic about that than others. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just different personalities and different sort of things. So Dorothy and I are going to have to do some research about what dyes rose fiber takes up, because we both said the opposite in response to Sarah's question. So those questions in the chat, we'll have to do some research, because a lot of those manufactured fibers are considered plant derived and take the Procyon dyes. So we'll have to do some research, Dorothy. Let's do that. What would you do with 500 yards of light fingering? A shawl Yeah, I would do a shawl, but a shawl or mix it with another hand spun. So like I could put this with hand spun that, to be honest with you, part of the reason why I wanted to leave this as a 2-ply is if I don't use it in my natural shades along, I have a skein upstairs of 2-ply finely spun yak silk, merino yak silk from Sweet Georgia that I did for the Fiber Club years ago. I've been holding on to that skein for eons, not sure what to do. And it would look awesome with this as a colorwork shawl. And I have so much yardage of both. I was looking at one of the rectangular shawls. One of the square shawls. The pie, is it the pie shawl? No, it's one of Kate Davies patterns. I don't remember. Anyways, one of the square hap shawls. And I was thinking about maybe doing that. So yeah. Oh my goodness, Becca, totally. Never underestimate the spiritual and emotional power of a nap and a snack, right? You know what I did yesterday afternoon? I was so drained. I ended up going, so my neighbor, she's one of my best friends, and she works for she's the accountant for a massive, the biggest produce distribution company here in BC. So they send produce all over the province. Anyway, she had a big box, like huge box of rhubarb for me because I had helped with some stuff earlier in the week with her mother-in-law. She was having some health problems. And so I sat with her for about 2 hours on Monday night and just talked her down. And so she showed up the next day with this massive box of rhubarb. Well, you either love rhubarb or you hate rhubarb. Like there's really not a whole lot of people that are in between. I love rhubarb. My dad loved rhubarb. I love rhubarb. So I took it all on, I guess it was Wednesday. I chopped it all up, pounds of it. My hand was a bit sore by the end. And I stewed it all up. And I've been having stewed rhubarb every day with brown sugar added on top with some granola. It's my favorite. So anyways, little treats. And that was so good. I had it while we were in book club, actually. Oh, Diana, that's so true. Over time, my wool sweaters with lots of wear adapt to my body like a leather shoe. That's so true. Absolutely. I've been realizing I need to knit my sweaters smaller than I think because the fabric really does relax with wear. Yep, you're absolutely right, Lindsay. Wondering about rewinding. So Josie was just wondering, doesn't it change the amount of twist? So when you're winding from the side of a bobbin onto the side of the bobbin, the idea is that you're not really changing that much about twist. If you have a cone of yarn and you're pulling upward, so if you have a bobbin of yarn and you're pulling up like this, you're changing the twist and you're adding or removing twist. But that's why some people love plying from a center pull ball and some people hate plying from a center pull ball, because as you pull from that center pull ball from the inside and the outside, you're adding and removing twist. But when you're taking off of the side of a bobbin onto this side of another bobbin, you shouldn't be kind of messing with the twist in any significant amount. Oh, there's lots of people who love rhubarb. That's awesome. Kelly's ambivalent to rhubarb, although she does bake it with apples. I never liked rhubarb, says Holly, until I tried rhubarb ginger jam. Yes, so good. Rhubarb and custard boiled sweet, so good. Eve, you guys are making me hungry. Sarah likes the rhubarb gin. Actually, I have a great recipe for rhubarb muffins, so I'll post it on the Slack channel for you guys. I think, so I had a couple of things to share with you. I'm just looking at the show notes because there's a couple of things I was going to talk about, but I really made no progress on them because of the kind of week that we had. So let me just go to some stuff that I wanted to tell you about. So one of the big things that happened this week was the School of Sweet Georgia released my sheep breeds course. So this is a four module course. It starts off with the fine to medium wools, which is what was released on the School of Sweet Georgia this past week. There is an affiliate link that helps for me as the creator to be paid. And so I just posted that in the live chat. And there's also links in the show notes available at patreon.com/wealthforpearls. And those links are in the show notes below. So it's a very comprehensive course. The first module has 11 lessons alone, and it basically chronicles, Greta's in the chat today, so she can probably speak to it a little bit as well. But this, the course basically is like my experience of sort of working through all of these breeds and all of the learning and all of the things. And I wanted to say a very, very huge, massive, special thank you to the Patreon community, because you guys were the ones that provided and helped me to collect all of the locks, the wool locks that are in the course. So in all of the different classifications of wool, as we work our way through, you guys will see all of the locks that you guys sent me. So there's like, you know, Cotswold and Caracool and Romney and Gotland and Manx Lockton and Jacob and Clonfort. Like, it just goes on and on and on. And at one point we were able to, between Greta and Felicia and I, we were able to line them all up and kind of like showcase like all of the locks, and they didn't all fit on the table. So we kind of were able to break them up and divide them out, and it was really quite incredible. So thank you so much. So the first module is available on the School of Sweet Georgia. I wanted to give myself a little bit of a plug to be able to share that with you guys, because this was certainly a it was a big project. There's a word that I'm looking for, the corpus callosum. That's a part of the brain. You guys know what I'm trying to say. It was a big project, and I've been working on this diligently since about November, and then we filmed in March in the studio, you know, masking and social distancing and all that kind of stuff. So it was sort of a very new experience to sort of be able to do that and to be able to still, you know, see our work come to fruition. So just thank you so much to everybody, and I just really appreciate all the work that Greta did, all the work that Leah did, Felicia and everybody else at Sweet Georgia for just supporting the work that I do and wanting to showcase it. I just I'm really humbled. So thank you. So that is the Spinning Sheep Breeds course. That's what I was trying to think of, Wendy. I knew somebody would be on the same wavelength. A magnum opus. That's exactly what it is. So thank you so much. I wanted to share with you, now I'm going to lose it. I'm not going to be able to find it. So this is the content that I wanted to share with you that is part of the How I Spin stuff that's coming up in June. So May and June is sort of my chronicle of all of my breed and color study. Katrina and I are actually getting together in a couple of weeks to record the final episode on Wool and Spinning Radio that'll kind of bring this particular breed and color study to a close. And I had a stressful week anyways, but this was like a whole other level. And I said to Mike afterwards, I was like, I shouldn't have tried to steak this week. And he was like, why did you? Because he didn't know what it meant. He's like, well, what is it? And why would you? And why did you? And I said, well, I had a really quiet few hours. I felt like I was present and able to work on it. And then after I sort of had gone through it, I was like, nope, this was not the week that I should have done it, because everything felt so emotional. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm doing this. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm doing this, you know, and just feeling really kind of a bit overwhelmed. So I was sort of laughing at myself a little bit, because our making is supposed to be a place where we come to relax and take a deep breath, and it's only yarn. It's, you know, it shouldn't be something super serious, and here I am, like, just absolutely like an emotional stress ball about it. And so I have finished the body of this. I got it steeked. I did a sewn steek. I pulled out my sewing machine, because I have my mom's sewing machine from the 70s. She bought it in the late 70s. It was right before I was born, and I grew up sewing on it. So when she retired, she actually bought herself, it was sort of her retirement gift, she bought herself a new sewing machine and gave me her Pfaff, which has ended up being a bit of a joke, because every time she wants to do anything that's not her specialty quilting, she's always borrowing my machine back because the machine is just so good. It's a faff. It does what it does very well. So I steeked by sewing lines where Andrea talks about in the pattern. And then I cut up the center there. I have picked up for the collar, and I finished the short rows around the collar. And now I'm just working on the band. So in the How I Spin content, I'll go into more detail about this and about the color management and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to share this with you guys. So Eve, you make me laugh. You are so funny. It is the Rachel show. Didn't you get the memo? Thank you everyone for your kind comments. Yeah, the Spark Cardi is beautiful. Thank you so much, Josie. I'm not confident enough to knit a cardigan bottom up as I don't know how to attach the sleeves and join the yoke. We'll talk about that in the How I Spin content, Eve, so you'll be able to read about that. We are so used to push ourselves over the edge. It's so true. I think it's Naomi. I think we just go and go and go, and we push and push and push and push, and we sort of get to that point where it's like crash and burn, right? If anybody's read any of Gabor Mate's work, When the Body Says No, I'll just put that in the show notes. If nobody's heard of him, I would seriously, I would really highly recommend you have a look at that. His work is amazing. He's got a lot of stuff on YouTube. He's getting up there now in age, and he's just at his, he's got this wealth of because of his age and his experience and his worldview and what he's been through, and his family origin story. He has just, and then on top of that, his scholarly work. He's just a wealth of information. So if you guys, people are saying that book is awesome. Lindsay says that book opened my eyes to so much about the effects of stress. Absolutely. Yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of take stock of some of this stuff and look at sort of what we want our lives to look like long term, and the effects of stress and how stress affects us, being on the hamster wheel, what that looks like, how we manage that. Those are all things that Mike and I have been talking about lately. So really, really good to sort of remind ourselves of those things. We have some awesome community participation this week, so I want to make sure that we have lots and lots of time to talk through all of these projects because they are just amazing. And I felt like the Slack channel just like blew up in the last 48 hours for some reason. People were finishing things and sharing things, and lots of things that they were working on and finishing. So I added those things in. So I took a couple of minutes this morning to add all of that in. So it's a long one today, but just such awesome inspiration and projects. For May, for our giveaway, you can comment here in YouTube. Please don't leave a comment in the live chat. You need to actually comment in YouTube. Tell us about your favorite food and why. I told you about mine today, about the rhubarb. And so, and I love raspberries. So I would like to hear about yours. So you can comment in the Ravelry group in the episode thread, or you can leave a comment here on YouTube. For April, we were giving away the other half braid of Lava Love on the 100%. No, I think it was the Panda, and because Maria had chosen the Targi. So I think I have that backwards in the show notes. I think I wrote that the Targi is the one that we're giving away for April, but I think it's actually the Panda. I'll double check. Anyways, it was a YouTube comment, and it was Alicia Art. So ELYSIA Art. That was the YouTube username. So if you could get in touch with me either through email, let me just write in the live chat so that she can see herself when she watches this later. Just get in touch with me with your mailing address. You can email me, rachel@wellfordpearls.com, or message me on Ravelry @wellfordpearls. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I will get that in the mail for everybody. So once I hear from her, I'll get everything in the mail, and we'll mail that all off. Yeah, Kath, it's a great book. I would definitely have a look on Audible. It's a good read. I have the hard copy and I read the hard copy, like the physical book. But Daniel Maté, his son, reads most of his books. And so if you've read Hold On to Your Kids, if you've read Scattered Minds, which is about ADD and ADHD, if you've read a couple other of his books. There's his background is in trauma and addictions, and so his book about trauma and the addiction cycle is also read by his son. And Daniel's just got a fantastic voice, so it's a really easy read. Even though the content and what he's talking about can be quite painful, because it hits close to home. So this is the first share. This is our breeding color study, and this is from Liz. So this is Liz of Kingdom Fleece and Fiberworks. She wants some thoughts. She's spinning for the breeding color study. She finished her first 3-ply skein. Isn't that amazing? It's about 230 yards. She's guessing about sport DK, and I do wonder in the washing if it'll poof up a little bit. She's wondering about if she did a 2-ply with the rest, would she have enough fingering weight to do another sweater yoke? So this yarn being a 3-ply, about 230 yards, she's wondering if she has enough to do a colorwork yoke. So what I would do, yes, that's the one, Diana, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. That's his book about trauma and addiction. I think it is. I've read all of his books, but I'm pretty sure that one's the one about trauma and addictions. I actually read it when I was working on the downtown east side, and it was a big wake-up call. And I ended up not staying down there because I just never, ever, ever felt safe, even though I was working as a street nurse. And so I decided to go on to other things, but I read it right at that time that I was working down there. I was just too young to be doing that work. I didn't have enough confidence and enough experience as a nurse. I was only 21. I wasn't able to cope. And now in hindsight, it would be interesting to go back to that work now, knowing, sort of having the experience that I have now. So she was wondering if she would have enough. She's washed and dried and it's over 300 yards. So she has enough to do a color work. So what I would do when I'm not sure if I have enough yardage for something, what I actually do is I go on to Ravelry and I scroll and I go to the pattern search and I know a lot of people can't use Ravelry, so I am sorry about this, but it is a good fix. If you go down to the very bottom, there is in the search on the left-hand side, there's you have to look for it, but go all the way to the bottom. And there's a search function that's by gauge or by yardage. And so all of those different ones, like if you knit up a swatch and you know that you've got a certain gauge, and then you know that you only have a certain number of yards, you can put in that you're looking for something that's 2 colors. This is the yardage of the one yarn, and then you can search for gauge, and then you can scroll through. It'll give you, when you put in 2 colors, it'll give you just a ton of color work, and filter for sweaters as well. And then you can actually scroll through based on your gauge, the amount of yardage that you have for your contrast color, your sweater, whether you want to do a cardigan or a yoked sweater or whatever. And then you can filter through your projects and find what will work for you. So it just kind of helps to get you like on the right track. And then you can eliminate a lot of the sweaters that you know that you won't have enough yardage for. So hopefully that helps. And beautiful yarn, Liz. This is from Debbie. She did a toque with her breeding color study, and I just love this so much. It just screams to me some of the stuff that Mars was working on with her Manx, and my colorwork mitts that I did with my Kiviet. Just that beautiful, subtle. Her colorwork isn't as low contrast, but it's just has a beautiful movement. I just think it's gorgeous. So Debbie says, I have started to use one of my breeding color study skeins. I realize now that I would have liked shorter length of color changes. So see how in the second photo, her color changes are quite long. There's quite a long time where the cream is, quite a long time where the orange is, quite a long time where the red, and then of course the purple. And in that whole toque, she never actually got into the black because those color changes were longer. I really like it. I think it's beautiful, but she's wondering how she would spin to do this. So this was spun end to end, and then it was plied from a center pole cake. So she got some beautiful barber poling. The pattern, by the way, for anybody who's wondering, is the Merry Dancer's Tory, and it's by Elizabeth Johnston. The brown yarn is alpaca. So what you can do, Debbie, if you want to create a shorter repeat of color, you strip your braids down more. So instead of stripping them once and spinning them end to end, you'd split it in half for your 2 bobbins, but then each of your strips of fiber you would strip a few times. So you could strip them twice if you wanted slightly shorter but still long color repeat changes, and then 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. The more you split, the shorter and shorter and shorter your color lengths will get, because there's fewer and fewer fibers for that specific color. I hope that helps. In shared her bobbins on her Lendrum of all 3 of her braids. So this is the gray. Isn't that beautiful? It was really fun to see in share her bobbins as she was spinning, because this is the white braid, and look at how different the bobbin is compared to the one that we just saw that was the gray. And then she has a photo of how she split all of the braids. So this is the moret in her basket ready for spinning. So she's just split them down and gotten them ready for spinning. And then this is the moret. Isn't that neat to see the 3 different bobbins and how differently they're spinning up on, it's the same photo each time, and yet they look so different. And I have to say, in just beautiful filling of your bobbins just look beautiful. Lovely photos. Not that that's the goal, but definitely just a really beautiful, like aesthetically very pleasing. This is from Greta Lynn. I just love this so much. This is from our Luxury Fibers Along. So there's a thread for all of this stuff in the Ravelry group as well as on Slack. So if you're not a Ravelry user, but you are on the Slack channel, there's separate channels for all of these things. So there's the natural fibers along, natural shades along, the luxury fibers along, the breed and color study. Breed and color study on the Slack channel, we just share in the general channel so that nobody misses it. And yeah, so if you're wondering about joining some of these alongs and you want to hop in, the natural shades along and the luxury fibers along, they're kind of just going to go on for a while. People are going to take a while to kind of work their way through all of their stuff. So this is from Greta Lynn. She had shared some watercolor paper swatches of her colors that she was playing with in paints for this project. She's doing a weaving course. And so she's actually started weaving. So the reason why I wanted to share this is because the weft is her Tussa peduncle. So it's beautiful. I love this. It is so inspiring, Greta. So thank you so much for sharing that. I love that gold yellow. Well, you guys know that ochre color is like my favorite color. So of course I was drawn to this immediately because hello, natural shades and luxury and gold. You can't go wrong. And Tussa peduncle, which those of us who've spun it, we all really loved it. So thank you, Greta Lynn, for sharing. And Greta Lynn was actually on a recent episode of Woolen Spinning Radio. So if you missed that, definitely have a look at that. And in the Woolen Spinning Radio post on Patreon, so if you're a patron of the show, part of your subscription, even if it's just $1 a month, is the audio podcast for Woolen Spinning. And the audio podcast is called Woolen Spinning Radio. And what I've been doing is actually most months, with very few exceptions since January, we've been recording video on Zoom because it's so easy to do. And so we've had a video. If you don't want to listen to the audio, you can actually just click the YouTube link and you can watch it on YouTube, which is really fun. This is also part of our Luxury Fibers Along. I don't know if she intended it to be part of Luxury Fibers, but I'm putting it into Luxury Fibers because this is Dorothy's latest skein, and it is lace weight merino and silk. I don't know. I know that Dorothy is here today. Is it spindle spun? I was wondering if this was one of your skeins that you've been working on recently that was on one of your spindles, because that's what you've been doing a lot lately is spindle spinning. She has a Hansen, but she does do a lot of her spinning on her spindles. Beautiful yarn, Dorothy, really well done. And these colors, The colors, they're so springy. Next, we've got something from Suzanne. I love this so much. Suzanne, when I saw this, I'm not going to share it just yet. When I saw this, I literally squealed. So everybody get ready to squeal. She finished her cyan and it looks amazing. I love this so much. So Suzanne says she finished her cyan. She loved knitting it. She made it in Let Lopi because she really wanted the halo of the Icelandic yarn, and she loved knitting with it. This is the first yoke sweater she's made for herself as she's been trying to work through fit for her bust. She made a size 6 but then separated for the sleeves and put the size 5 amount for the back and size 7 amount for the front. It worked out great, and in the future I'd leave the contrast color off of the collar, the hem, and the cuffs. You know, Suzanne, I was actually surprised that you said that, because I really like that finishing touch. It makes the sweater look really, really finished, and it frames your face. So yeah, I really like it. I think it looks amazing. Really well done. Just absolutely beautiful, Suzanne. Everybody's saying gorgeous. Wow. Big hearts. Amazing accomplishment. Looks great. Gorgeous. I just can't believe the talent in this community. You guys just, every week, you just blow me away. This is from Kelly. This is to build on the Manx Lockton that Mars was working on. So when she posted this in the Slack channel, I had to share it because we've had a little bit of a Manx run lately, and I have some Manx Lockton as well that I want to spin. And so this is Kelly's comically large skein, she says, of Manx. Kelly and I talked about Manx when she was on Wool & Spinning Radio earlier this year, and she's been spinning it. Mars has been spinning it, and then I actually have some in my stash that I would really like to spin. I made a Google Doc, it's a Google sheet actually, of my inventory, and I put everything in bins, and I labeled all of the bins so that I would know where everything was. So all I have to do is search the sheet, and then I know which bin everything is in. But I didn't add the Manx, and the Manx is in one of the bins somewhere, and I didn't add it to the sheet. So now I can't find it. You know, best laid plans. It just means it's not meant to be spun right now. This is from Mars. Following my original note about this project, just logging some progress here. I am really enjoying spinning as I go for the slumber shawl. Because gauge is not a limiting factor, I'm able to focus on learning the settings of my wheel to get the best out of the fiber. I am using a Shetland Ramie silk base in different colors, and each color has varying percentages. This kind of, quote, sampling, unquote, feels useful on multiple levels. More long draw and chain ply practice with this worsted prep of Shetland Ramie silk blend, and I am loving it. The long draw drafting method and fine singles allowed the drape to stay in the strands after finishing, and the bounce of the Shetland really came to life after a hot soak. No snapping or thwacking. This is 40 grams that will go into my slumber shawl in progress. Beautiful. I was wondering, because she shows her spindle here, so I was wondering if she was doing sort of some combination spinning, so doing a little bit on the wheel and doing a little bit on her spindles, but just beautiful. I'm excited to see that shawl finished. The texture on that shawl looks gorgeous with that yarn. It does, Martha. Yeah. Oh, that's great, Lindsay. Your stash organizing made me go stash organizing. I'm glad. So Zero to Hero is one of the things that we work on throughout the year, and we just start a new thread every year on Ravelry just to keep it clean more than anything, because usually by the end of the year we've got, you know, page after page after page of Zero to Hero. It's very similar to Fluff to Stuff. It's sort of the opportunity to go from the raw material, whether it's a comb top or a dyed braid or a fleece or something else, pin drafted roving, whatever it is that you want to work with, from the wool all the way through to a finished item. And we started this back in like 2016, which is a long, like, you know, it's getting to be a long time. It's the podcast on Patreon is actually celebrating 5 years in June, which is just incredible. And Zero to Hero has been a part of what we do for quite a long time now. So Sarah finished up some of her Zero to Hero. She's sort of still in progress, if you will. She finished plying 2,139 yards of 3 ply, about 10 wraps per inch. She ended up filling up 2 great jumbo bobbins, about 400 grams each, though she could have probably fit a bit more. But really, would you have to? Would you need to? I had to divide each bobbin onto 2 skeins because neither my Nitty Naughty nor my Swift could handle 400 grams. Now to swatch, and she's thinking about the Winter's Beach Cardi by Andrea Mowry. Beautiful. Really well done, Sarah. I can't wait to see the finished sweater. And actually, I'm looking forward to seeing your knitted swatches because that's sometimes really fun to go through that process and see what that looks like. So well done, Sarah. 2,000 yards of yarn. That's a lot. That is a lot. 2,000 yards. Yeah, Zan was like, wait, what was that number? Yeah, 2,000 yards. Carissa shared this. This was one of the things that was thrown up on Slack in the last day. This is Carissa's shawl made from handspun yarn, 60% merino, 20% yak, 20% silk, with an unsharpened pencil for scale. So it's quite large, and she hasn't blocked it yet, but beautiful colors, Carissa, beautiful. I always look forward to seeing Carissa every year at Fibers West and Knit City and whatnot. It's been odd not to see you for like almost 2 years now. It's weird, a year and a half anyways. So thank you for sharing. I hope that your daughter is still doing all of her knitting and spinning and stuff too. This is from Alicia. She had her little guy, and she made these little pants for him. I had to share this as Zero to Hero because really, pregnancy and a baby, that in and of itself is a zero to hero. Let's be honest. And she had a bit of a rough go towards the end, and we were all thinking of her and holding her in our thoughts and prayers. So Alicia, all done, washed and dried, over 300 yards. She wished she could start knitting it right now, but she has so many other things she needs to finish first. And here's different color changes. Hard to get everything in the photo. Just beautiful. Lovely, Alicia. Thank you for sharing your little guy with his little pantaloons. So cute. His little diaper covers. I always thought about making those for the kids, and then I just kind of never got to it, but I did make a lot of sweaters for the kids. I did a lot of sample knitting the year that James was born, and I sort of ended up doing that instead of like little diaper covers for him. But yeah, really, really fun. So congratulations, Alicia. This is from Jennifer. Oh, good to see you, Becca. Go have a good dinner. A squishy. I love squishies. Love wool soakers. Congratulations, Alicia. And actually, I think Alicia's been teaching her mom how to spin too. And her mom's finally getting the hang of it. So that's been really cool. This is from last week. I was right. These were the right photos that Jennifer had shared on Slack after we had talked about what she uses her leftover wool scraps for. And I just got a bit mixed up as to what I was sharing and what I was talking about. And so this is one of so not last show, but the show before. I had shared some of Jennifer's 51 yarns that she's been working on. And in that, there was a photo of some of her wool scraps that she uses for her art quilts. So I wanted to share this with you. She says, a good amount of my wool stash goes into my art quilts. There is a symbiotic relationship between processing for spinning and what I use for felting, meaning anything I call, as I prep for spinning lands in the containers for felting. Here is one finished 3D art quilt for a show in July. I call it Globetrotter. It is a cover of a felted and quilted fleece on a folding umbrella held by tension with little triangle holders that the umbrella arms fit into. It's just brilliant. The umbrella was our son's when he was a little boy, so that has meaning for me. Just think this is amazing. Yeah, Globetrotter. Beautiful. That is amazing. I am in love with this. Yeah. Now this is from Mary. I'm not going to read everything that Mary wrote because she put a really great long post up in our Ravelry group, but I will kind of touch on the highlights. She has finished her spring themed spinning and blending. This was the yarn that was the inspiration from the cover of the magazine that was the watermelon radishes. So that was all of the yarn spun. I had shared with you her photos of the fiber that she had been prepping, and that was the photo of the actual finished yarn. And then Mary is just so cute in this photo that I had to share this. So she finished her spinning and blending project. She ended up casting on for the Da Crofters Kep, which I'm not sure who that's by, but I know it's a really well-known pattern. I really like it. I have to admit, now I want to knit it. And with the light brown with light brown yarn that she had dyed from hickory nut husks. So her reflections afterwards, she thinks this spinning and knitting project taught her a lot about blending for color in her spinning. It also taught her about combining color in her knitting. She thinks the 3 different background colors changed her perception of her blended fiber. The light golden brown is the most mellow of the 3 hats. The color work is muted. The color work in the hat with the off-white background, so that's the one that's closest to me right now. The colors are sharper and stand out more. And then there was a bit of yarn left and she wanted to try a darker background. So she was, hang on, I lost my place. I was knitting in the evening and didn't think the colors were showing up as well. But once I had a look in the morning, I think the contrast is pretty good. Even though the contrast isn't very sharp in the light brown hat, I think that one is her favorite. So that's this one here. Just beautiful, Mary. I like the headband that's in the middle there with the gray. It's sort of a little bit moody. And with that bright green and that bright fuchsia pink, it's really, really nice. I really like that headband. They're all beautiful, just well done. The pattern is from Wilma Malcolmson. Thank you, Dana. It's from the Shetland Wool Week. Thank you. I knew it was from somewhere well known. I find it's actually hard sometimes. You guys can appreciate this. It's hard to keep up with everything. Ravelry, Instagram, all of the newsletters and everything. It's overwhelming at times. I'm sure you guys find that as well. So what a fantastic project and outcome. I mean, this is sampling at its best, right? Sampling and play. That's why I've made it one of the topics for community participation now, because you guys are just getting more and more bold about what you're doing, and it's just so fantastic. This is from Tanya. She dove down the sock knitting rabbit hole. She's been playing with different sock yarn structures and fiber blends, and she just finished her most recent pair. This is 2-ply Southdown Mohair Silk Blend, which is a gift for her yellow loving mom for Mother's Day. This was the latest of her basic plies, 2, 3, and 4 plies. So now I get to start the really fun ones, opposing ply and crepe yarn. So keep us posted, Tanya. I want to see those yarns and those socks. This one is from Alex. This is really fun. So this is from Alex C. On Slack, I was playing around with acid dyes, trying a new to me technique. On the second layer of dye, I thought I flubbed it, but I was so happy with the result. I was aiming for a high twist 3-ply for socks, so her and Tanya on the same wavelength, but she didn't quite get it thin enough or enough meterage. It's a bit tricky to get the color right in the pictures because they want to show more blue, but it is more like a green copper overall. Yeah, beautiful. I love this. I love this. I don't know what the base fiber was, but it looks like there's some Angelina in there. It's just gorgeous. Really nicely done. You could always do some house socks, Alex. If you've got that nice high twist in there, you could do some house socks. And or like some thin, sort of not house socks, not socks, but like sort of like slippers kind of, but just a beautiful original braid. It's fun learning how to dye fiber and looking at how you guys are experiencing that and your experiments. I really enjoy seeing that stuff because it's not something that I have the space to be able to do right now, and it's definitely something that I would like to do in the future. So the last one, this is from Katie. I just love what she says. This is Katie M on Slack because we do have a number of Katies. My sister-in-law is Katie too, so I'm partial to that name. I tried hand carding for the first time ever and spun the results into 157 yards of worsted weight woolen spun. And then she says, and this is what made me laugh, making row legs is hard. Bless you, Katie. That is just so cute and so honest. You're absolutely right. Fantastic project and outcome. I think that was the comment for Mary. I totally agree, Kathy. So happy to catch a bit of the live show. Marina, good to see you. Socks are beautiful. BFL. Oh, thank you, Alex. So BFL Trilobal Nylon Blend. Oh, interesting. So is that kind of like sparkle? I'm wondering. Yeah, the Carter covers. I was going to comment about that and then I forgot. So let's just go back. Aren't those amazing? So when you've got kids around, especially, and like little hands and animals and whatnot, I thought those Carter covers were brilliant. So Katie, if you made those and you have a pattern, I would love to post a link for people who would be interested in making those, because that is just awesome. All you'd have to do is measure your Carters and then lay 2 pieces of fabric over top of each other, sew around, turn them inside out, and add some snaps. It wouldn't be really difficult to do. But for the people who aren't sewing inclined, it would be nice to have a link. If that's something that you did from a pattern. I kind of doubt it, but really, really cool. Really well done. So thank you so much for being here today, you guys. I really appreciate your time. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. We've got lots coming up here this week in woolen spinning in the community. We've got a Maker Morning coming up at 10:30 Pacific on Thursday. So if you're signed up for that, that is coming up. We've got our virtual spin groups happening on Tuesday morning, which is a regular thing. For those who are part of book club who weren't there yesterday, we moved book club to Tuesday at noon. The kids are off school this coming Friday. They've got a Pro D and professional development, for those who don't know what that is. And so having them home and also being kind of here and present for 2 hours isn't really realistic. So we moved it to Tuesday at noon. So for those who weren't there and didn't know, I know that Becca was going to post it in the Slack channel, but just in case you missed it, Tuesday book club is meeting at noon, and then we're back to our regular Fridays the following week. The Ontario Handweavers and Spinners Demystifying Flax series, the next one is coming up on Saturday. So if you are signed up for that and if you are part of that, Rebecca is going to be presenting this coming Saturday, and then I am presenting the Saturday after that on the 15th. So a couple of really exciting weekends coming up, and yeah, that's going to be really a lot of fun. I hope you guys are doing really super well. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful week, and I'll just catch up on the last couple of things for housekeeping. Victoria's wondering, so yes, the new Maker Morning signups, Victoria, great question. That will be going up later today, and I will post the link in the Slack channel and also on Patreon for you guys. So if you want to do if you want to sign up for your spot for the Maker Morning for June, July, and August, you guys can go ahead and do that when I post that later today. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Lindsay. She's going to have a look at the School of Sweet Georgia. Yeah. Have a wonderful rest of your day, you guys. And if there's any questions or you need to connect with me about anything, you can do so on Ravelry, on the Slack channel, or you can send me an email, rachel@wellforpearls.com, or you can message me through Patreon. I do check Patreon multiple times every day, so that's actually one of the best places to get a hold of me. I do not check Instagram very often, and I do not check the direct messages on there very often. So if you're wondering about something, please try to get a hold of me via Patreon or email, rachel@wellforpearls.com. I do check that as well. It's just easier for me not to be dealing with another social media management site. I would rather do this other stuff really well than spend my time divided between multiple different sites. So, and connecting with you guys directly. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys have a really wonderful weekend. I've said that a million times. I never want to say goodbye. Have you noticed? So I will see you next weekend. Bye, everyone.